Captain. Both MOS at Jamaica Hospital.
Affirmative, K.
You're looking for a Perp in regards, or is he in custody?
I have. CO.
13 squad, CO.
13 squad, CO.
Central, both MOS 84 at the hospital.
Hey, trust 9K, just to verify, K, both MOS are at the hospital, correct?
Both MOS are at the hospital. Both
One on two CO, K.
for Overwatch, everyone up.
Both MOS are currently in the hospital. In the ER, they're being worked on.
3 red, thanks for the update.
10-4, both are at the hospital being worked on.
Squad CO, go with your message.
2 squad, CO.
13 squad, CO.
Copy.
13 squad, CO Central. We have MOS 84 at the hospital?
Both MOS currently in the ER, both being worked on at this time.
Okay, Central, 10-4. Clear the air now, okay? We have I don't believe we're looking for anybody. I got EMS on scene. I got 1 male shot inside the residence.
One male shot by a... Alright.
13 squad, Lieutenant. Be advised, the 105 CO and the 105 XO are 64 at the incident location. 5 Lieutenants are 84. Next. Dave, see that. Are we looking for anybody? Is there any outstanding perks on this? Captain, negative. We're not looking for anyone.
Serve as a stark reminder of the dangers that New York City police officers are facing on the streets every day. I'm joined here by a number of people, notably Mayor de Blasio to my left, Dr. Eli Kleinman, who's here somewhere, our Chief Surgeon, First Deputy Commissioner Ben Tucker, Chief of Department Terrence Monahan, Chief of Patrol Juanita Holmes, Pat Lynch, President of the PBA, and Dr. William Nugent of the Jamaica Medical Center. First, before I turn it to the mayor, and then I'll go into remarks. As always, I want to thank the doctors, the nurses, and the incredible staff here at Jamaica Medical Center for their incredible work with our 2 officers. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to say that also, Jamaica Hospital Medical Center really taking care of our officers today and really been great to their families as well. I want to thank them. I want to thank everyone who is here to support our officers. Special thank you to the Borough President-elect of Queens, Donovan Richards. Commissioner and I spent some time with some of the family members. And thank God, the most important thing to say up front is thank God our 2 officers are in stable condition. Thank God they will pull through. They have serious injuries, but ultimately they're going to be okay. And there was such a feeling of relief among the families to know that. But let's talk about what happened here today. Here you have officers who do the Lord's work. They protect survivors of domestic violence. They go into some of the most volatile, difficult situations that you could possibly imagine, some of the most difficult work that any police officers do. They do it to protect innocent people who have been victims of abuse. And here we have a situation where a woman was in danger and these officers went to protect her, only to find themselves in harm's way immediately. Thank God they're going to pull through. But I want to emphasize, when it comes to protecting these innocent people, we depend on our officers. We need to be thankful for the work they do. Domestic violence in particular is so difficult, so unpredictable. And yet we have officers who step forward and say, I'll take on that job. because I want to save lives. And today they saved that woman's life. I want to be crystal clear. Because those officers were there, that woman is alive. And I say God bless them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we have again is preliminary at this point in time. I want to mention to everyone that we have a 41-year-old woman who walks into the 105 Precinct Station House sometime this morning to report a domestic violence incident that took place last night. At approximately 12:40 p.m. this afternoon, she reports back to her residence with 2 domestic violence officers. The location is 145 86th 179th Street here in the 105 precinct. At the time that they entered the house, the suspect was not at the residence. We believe that the officers and the victim in this case were there approximately 6 minutes. At that point in time, the subject returned to the residence, walks in the door of the residence, and begins shooting at the 2 officers. That occurred at 12:46 p.m. After immediately opening fire and shots exchanged, both officers are struck and injured. One in the right upper thigh, he has a fractured femur and is undergoing surgery. The other officer was shot at least 1 time, and we believe at this point in both hands. Both officers, who have nearly 14 years with the police department and nearly 6 years with the police department, respectively, are awake and in stable condition here at Jamaica Medical Center. Again, both require surgery for their very serious injuries, and we're hopeful for a full recovery. The suspect in this case, identified as 41-year-old Rondell Gopi, was also shot. It is undetermined how many times at this point in time, and was pronounced deceased at the scene. Multiple guns were recovered at the scene belonging to Mr. Gopi. The female victim in the case was not injured as a result of the incident. Before we open up for very brief questions, Pat, do you have any words?
You know, it's the perfect example of, once again, we're saying here, we're fortunate, we're lucky, we're glad when we got here to the hospital, but let's not forget that we're here at this hospital. And those that disrespect police officers, those that want to say, well, let's defund them, let's take them out of every different type of job. Here's an example. It's an example of a domestic dispute. It's an example when the police officers walk in, they get shot at. What would happen if the police officers weren't there? What would happen if we didn't have enough of them to cover all the radio runs? What would happen if a social worker was there and the police officer wasn't? So sometimes in a college classroom, sometimes in a council room, sometimes on a Zoom conference talking about policing, it seems awful easy to say, here's the script and here's what we'll do. What we see here today and police officers that surround us see all the time, there is no script. We can't be removed. We need to be there. And remember, they called us to go there. And because these 2 police officers put themselves at risk, professionally went to that call, there's no one else dead. The complainant's not dead, the police officers are injured, and fortunately, the person that tried to take us in a situation where you'd think it would be okay, shot at us. And unfortunately, we have to live with it, but fortunately, he'll hurt no more.
So Terry, I think you have pictures of the 2 firearms that were recovered.
Hang on a second.
And with that, we'll take questions.
What can you tell us about this person's status to carry a firearm, and what can you tell us about his job and criminal history?
He, to our knowledge at this point in time, and again, this is very preliminary, based on the information we believe him to be who he is, no criminal history, and a licensed firearm handler, and currently working as a peace officer.
For CUNY?
Correct.
He does not have an arrest record then?
Not to our knowledge, but it is preliminary.
Commissioner, 4 previous calls to that house of domestic violence incidents. What came of those? How was he able to keep his guns?
Yeah, my understanding here, Rocco, is that you're correct. There were prior calls to that house. That'll be part of the investigation going forward. Why he was still in possession of those guns and what happened to those prior cases.
Commissioner, was he prior?
I don't think I gave a number. If I did, I know that there were prior domestic calls. How many will have to be part of the investigation.
Commissioner, was he known to have any sort of mental health problems beyond the obvious today?
That's all part of the investigation. That has come up, but it's extremely preliminary, and we'll have to vet that out.
Was there any indication he was waiting outside the house for police to enter until he came in?
That I do not have. What we know is the officers arrived there at about 12:40 with the victim of the domestic violence. They enter the residence, and after about 6 minutes, he comes into the residence and starts shooting. Whether he was laying in wait or just happened to arrive at that time will be part of the investigation.
So there was no conversation, he didn't say anything.
Almost instantly, he walks in the front door and starts shooting at our two officers.
How many weapons did he have on his person at that point?
We recovered 2 weapons at the scene. This will be the last one. We recovered a 3rd weapon that he owns not at the scene. Thank you all, and happy Thanksgiving.